do you get all of these amazing artists together in one place? I mean, tell me about the process that it takes to get to this point.
Well, the first year was the toughest because they didn't know what it was about. But I think now, you know, one of the writers called it the Superbowl of music. And I think now you've got artists want to participate, and they view it not as coming out and just playing, but really collaborating with other artists. And this whole thing is about a artist, the headliners, all playing together, as opposed to one headliner and a lot of, you know, opening acts. So it's sort of got a life of its own at this point.
So how important is this to your actual business? I mean, how many new radio listeners does this lead to? How much advertising does this lead to?
Well, I think part of it is that we are trying to, and I think have done a pretty good job of telling the consumer that if you love Z100 or KISS FM or whatever our big radio stations are, or KFI, that you can get them on a radio, you can get them on a smartphone, you can get them on a tablet, you can get them anywhere you want to. And iHeart Radio is really the platform to get everything that's not coming over the AM/FM transmitters and towers. And so I think this is we call it the iHeart Radio Music Festival, where the music of the iHeart Radio app comes to life. And I think that's true. You really get a physical embodiment of it. So it's great for promotion. Clearly, advertisers, when you get something this big, want to associate with it. And it's not only tonight, but generally we've been giving away tickets and trips and talking about it for 6 to 8 weeks. And the advertisers get to participate in that as well. So it's a great halo effect, as well as a way for them to really get embedded with the audiences as well.
Can you give me any numbers in terms of bumps that you may have gotten after last year's festival?
Well, you know, it's you know, certainly if you look at iHeart Radio, it's been a roaring success. It's the fastest internet service ever in the history of the internet. To reach 20 million registered users, faster than Facebook, Twitter, etc. It was the second fastest to 30 million, only behind Instagram. And so I think you have to say this plays a part in it because it really picks the profile of the service up. I mean, this is the #1 radio app, the second largest audio app already, and has a brand awareness of, you know, over 50%, which is extraordinary considering we came out of nowhere to do this.
And I understand you just did a deal with Warner Music Group, basically agreeing to pay artists and labels for the songs that play on your stations. Did you agree to do that to get a break on internet streaming?
No, we didn't, actually. What we were really trying to do is rearrange how we were being paid, because we think there's a huge opportunity to create a bigger digital market if we get all the pricing structure right, which is very good for artists who obviously want to be paid for their creative work, and they should be. And this is an opportunity, I think, to pay them more money and also to give them a piece of broadcast revenue. I think probably the more important thing was it sort of regularizes and structures a relationship that has been ad hoc for decades, which is the relationship between radio and the music companies. And I think there's huge benefit for the artist, for the music company, for us, for the listeners in doing that, because we can really work to really help build these new marketplaces, build these services, and I think that's everybody wins.
Now, Pandora actually just won a victory over publishers, in that a judge agreed that they didn't have to pay certain royalties. How big of a challenge is Pandora for you these days?
Well, it's interesting. I think Pandora's done a great job of proving that there's a market for this custom radio feature, which is really a playlist creator, which is a wonderful service. You don't have to think of every song. You put in one song and it spits out a playlist. Our view is that as opposed to that being a standalone business, we think it's a feature that is added to other businesses. For us, we added it to our radio stations, and our radio stations still get the majority of the listening. Apple just added it to their download service. Spotify added it to their subscription service. So we think it's an important feature, and Pandora does it. That's the only thing they do. So that's, and by the way, they've been around a long time. They do it well, so I'm not trying to take anything away from them. But I think I think the future will be, you'll see that kind of functionality in a lot of other music-oriented businesses.
You mentioned Apple, Bob. Obviously, Apple's iTunes Radio arriving this week with iOS 7. Do you think it's going to become another big competitor?
Well, no, I actually don't. I think they're in another business than we're in. And again, when they call it radio, they're really not real radio. They're a playlist creator, like our custom radio feature on iHeart Radio or Pandora or a couple of others. And I think it makes a lot of sense for them to add that to their download service, because the way most consumers store their music is on playlist. But Listening to your music collection is when you want to escape the world. Radio is when you want to engage the world. That's the reason we've got disc jockeys, we've got news, we've got information, we've got contests. It's a completely different kind of experience.
Now, Twitter and Univision are showing that the IPO market seems to be warming up again. What are your thoughts on taking Clear Channel public again?
Well, it's, actually we have a public stub out there, but I think for us, we've got our heads down and really focused on building this business, both our outdoor business and our radio business. And in the radio business, it's now expanded to really be media and entertainment, huge events, digital, in addition to our broadcast radio. Our traffic service alone reaches 170 million people a month.